everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
Today we're going to tell you how we felt about Zombieland Double Tap.
Yes.
Hey Brandon, it's been 10 years since we reviewed the original Zombieland back before Geekvolution proper, I think. It was just before the channel started, or as the channel was starting, and we did
Sounds
it on
about right.
the old podcast. And you were there, I remember it, you were there, and we had an old friend of mine, Wes, was there, and we reviewed the original Zombieland again on the audio podcast, and for old time's sake, we thought we would get together and go see the new one. And it's even more for old time's sake, because we're back on the old brick wall background, which we've not used in a bazillion years.
And will be the last time
Probably will be the last time it's used, yeah.
I feel special to be here for this momentous occasion.
I'm almost teary-eyed about it, to be honest with you. But I can't get too choked up because we've got to talk about Zombieland Double Tap. This is a movie that we've known was coming for a while now, for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess, or longer. It feels like I knew about this a long time ago. I was like, when is that coming out finally?
I don't remember when I knew about it, but I knew that it was coming. And I remember when I first heard about it and they said they'd got the entire cast back, and I was like, okay, I'm in it for that.
So entire cast is back, same director. This is Fleischer, who directed Venom, and this was...
That's funny to me.
Yeah, and it was his first major directing role, Zombieland.
Directorial debut, so to speak.
And so I don't know how exactly the second project came to fruition, but I imagine he probably lobbied for it for a long time. It's probably near and dear to his heart because it was the first big thing he did. These also have major Deadpool sensibilities because it's the same writers of Deadpool.
Yeah.
One of my big issues with these movies, and this one especially, is the fourth wall breaking, which I don't think makes any sense at all and just does not work. And it's like oh, because we're doing a comedy, we gotta have a character talking directly to the audience that knows they're watching a movie. This is a world where movies aren't being made anymore. How does he know he's in a movie? I don't understand.
Would that be your negative? Are you just coming out with your negative immediately?
Yeah, sure. We might as well just go straight into, pros and cons.
Full on end review mode.
Yeah, might as well. No, that's not even my biggest negative, really.
Okay, all right.
But it's a thing that irks me, certainly. But yeah, that's a...
This wasn't a problem for me, I just say that.
Worst thing? It doesn't make sense,
It doesn't make sense, but in a movie, okay...
This is not a straight-up farce, man. It's got an internal logic. You can't do that.
It's got an internal logic,
It's breaking the rules you established. You can't do that.
Maybe it's how he views the story in his own head. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, you can make up something if you like the movie well enough to make up something, Brandon. But I'm just saying it takes me out because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I can see that. I can get behind that.
Nah, you didn't even think of it until just now.
No, I know the fourth wall breaking because I made specific mention that he opened the movie in the identical way in which he opened the first one.
Yeah, but he talks way more to the audience in this.
He does talk more to the audience in this
and so
one.
just
I
bug
will
me
give
more,
it that.
Because that first movie, there's like 1 or 2 of them, and this one it's like, oh, we made Deadpool, and people like the fourth wall breaking Deadpool, so we gotta keep doing that. It's irritating.
That speaks to your vast knowledge.
It's annoying.
Even though I've seen Deadpool, I wouldn't have made that connection, but you are absolutely correct in
Well, you probably didn't know they wrote this, but...
No, I did, actually, and I remember
Well, that has nothing to do with my knowledge, then. You know everything I know.
Well, no, but you do this for a living, and you make those connections.
I've just thought of that, but it's not,
Right.
It's just because I think about that way. It's not knowledge, Like, you had the knowledge.
Well,
but anyway.
I had the knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Yeah, exactly. But you gotta
anyway.
Connect those things together. So yeah, sure. Let's go. I don't know. We'll do real brief synopsis. It's been 10 years, and these people that you figured at least one of this foursome would have died by now, they're all still alive, and they're still hanging out together as the family they put together at the end of last movie, and then we have to contrive some excuse for them to break up. And we do that, and it is very contrived, and one of them runs off, and they're kind of going their separate ways for a minute. We add a couple of new characters to the cast, but we don't ever make anybody else fully family in the way that these four all and it's kind of all about how they're kind of still destined to be together and why they make sense as a group. Sure. And it's mostly just an excuse, though, to kind of get back into this world and see these characters again, and it kind of feels like weirdly a reunion thing, right? Like, it feels like a bunch of actors that did a thing years ago that they really enjoyed doing that just wanted to get back together and do it again. And it feels as much for them as it is for an audience. And, like, they're all having a good time, and that's infectious, and so that helps elevate the material a lot.
Certainly.
I think. Yeah, like plot-wise, it's pretty thin. Plot and story-wise, just like... or plot and character-wise, just like the first movie. I don't think it's any thinner necessarily than the first movie, although I would say it's a bit more formulaic.
It certainly follows the identical formula of the first one, I felt like.
Well, that and it's more formulaic even than the first movie was. Like, there's a lot of plugging in for a standard action movie or zombie movie formula. I'd say more action movie formula than anything.
Yeah.
A lot of really obvious setup and payoff. I think, where it's like, okay, there's set and payoff, but like, you're tracking it where it's like, okay, this object is introduced, that's going to be really important for the third act. I'm seeing that coming. They don't surprise me with it. I'm not impressed by it.
I was totally surprised by the number of things in this movie.
Okay.
They threw me for some curves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have that. I thought it was pretty
that was one of my positives for this, so thanks.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just telling you what my experience was. I thought it was kind of rough.
No,
anyway.
hey, that's cool. That's what we're here for.
In my synopsis, I did a lot of reviewing, so I'll just straight up say I'm flipping my sign not feeling it, because that's pretty obvious, and so I'm going to go ahead and throw that up. Basically, my review for this movie is... It's the 34th rule. I enjoyed the little things.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoyed. Like, there's a lot of fun moments and a lot of fun one-off gags that I laughed at.
You certainly were laughing throughout this movie.
Yeah, I was.
I was going to review your movie.
In like a sketch comedy way, right?
Okay.
Where like the story here is kind of just an excuse to get to roll a bunch of jokes together. And there are a number of places, even more than the first movie, and this is where this is inferior to the first film. And I don't think that is a particularly great movie either. And I didn't like it as much as I did 10 years ago. Like, we watched it together in preparation for this, and I would probably lightly flip my sign red for that movie as well. So just right now at this point. So so just to get that up front, this is a sequel to a movie that I already don't think is great. That like I enjoyed the novelty of it at the time, but that has really worn off on me, and I just don't think it's as good as I thought.
Was it because of some of the dated references?
No, it's not really about references. It's more about storytelling and more about kind of obvious jokes. And with that movie, and I don't want to just review that movie again, but this will get into a thing I was a little surprised not to see in this. The premise for Zombieland from the previews initially looked like it was, what if the apocalypse happened and a bunch of people got stuck in a theme park? And that's what it looked like. No, Zombieland, okay, it's zombies in a theme park, right? And that is the third act. And the whole movie, they're headed toward a theme park, but most of it doesn't take place in a theme park. And so it's like, these guys sat down and had this cool idea, let's do zombies in a theme park, and then they went, oh, well, there's not enough material for that, so we'll just make that the third act, we'll just make that the big climax, but we'll call it Zombieland anyway, and so then it's this, like, unintentional double entendre, where it's like, everybody calls the world Zombieland, but the reason the movie is called that is because they went to a theme park. This movie has no theme park, and I was a little surprised that there was no theme park. And so now we're completely past what I'm assuming was the initial premise, the initial point, where it's like, yeah, we didn't actually have an idea there. It was just this kind of one-note idea of, let's put people in a theme park. That's not, like, a huge problem. There still could have been more of a movie there than there was. But, I mean, like, it's, pretty one-note archetypal characters in a movie that is, like, not farcical enough for it to be, for it to rely as much as it does on jokes, on just, gags.
Right.
And, like, what character stuff is there is fine, and you could build on a little bit more, and then you could make me, kind of care a little bit more than I do. But, like, I don't know, these are both kind of pretty rote movies to me. This one more so, though. Like, it's funny, I think some of the best jokes between the two are in this movie, but I think the first movie is overall a better movie.
A better movie.
Than this is, so I don't know. That's That's how I felt about it. So I don't know, real quick, best thing, worst thing, because you were like, are we doing that? And then I was like, no, I gotta do synopsis, and then I never actually did that. But like, I don't know. Worst thing I'm gonna say is the kind of like pulling obvious comedic tropes out of a hat.
Okay.
Where it's like, here are the big comedic cliches that have to be in movies where we don't really have ideas. And so we just kind of like lean on stuff you've seen before and like are too cliche to do as straight as we do them in this. And like, I don't want to give too much away for folks that haven't seen the film yet, because this is not a spoiler cast, but like, you gotta have the, I'll just say this, I don't think that it's that big of a deal. First of all, there is a like absurd love triangle that is like TV CW irritating, and a character that is funny for a minute, and then that's one note, and then it isn't funny anymore. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
She's got the occasional line, but for the most part, I don't know. So that's a problem. And then you've got the characters we meet who are exactly like us. You gotta do that
I like
whole
the
thing.
parallels. That's something I was okay with.
It's so obvious. You've seen it in 1,000 things, and it's not.
Okay,
it's
so
not funny.
If I may, on that point, I will say that because I haven't seen as much as you have over the years. So when it comes down to the things that are like that, it's not so tired to me as it might be to you. So I didn't find it quite as grating. There were a couple things where I was just like, okay, like, you know, why are we doing this? Like, what's up?
Because we don't have ideas.
Right.
That's why. And it's irritating because you have some decent writing in a movie that otherwise doesn't really have ideas. So I don't know. Like, this whole premise is real played out, and
We're doing a lot of zombie stuff lately.
And so I just think that you gotta work a little harder to make it worth going back and revisiting this, because it already felt a little bit tired even at that point, because there were movies that did this better, and that was even pre-Walking Dead TV shows. I mean, like, there's, you gotta work a little bit harder than I think they are. But best thing is, I guess remains overall chemistry between these four characters. I don't like the romance. It doesn't work at all. But, like, they're fun together, all four of them, when they're not doing that. And, like, there's a lot of, like I said, singular one-off jokes that I laughed at really hard that were really fun. There were some movie references that I liked a lot. The Jurassic Park reference that I thought was really funny. The Terminator stuff was obvious, and I got really tired of really fast.
That
we always go to that.
Old,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, I'm done talking. That's all I have to say.
Started out fine, but then they used that joke too many times.
It's watchable. I didn't hate it. I had a good time with a lot of scenes. I just didn't think it worked well enough to recommend it. If you really, really love that first movie, you're gonna be glad you saw this. But if it was just mediocre, you're gonna be like, probably. So, go ahead.
Raising my hand on
Right.
that note. So
you didn't have what I had when we rewatched it?
No.
It does not hold up to me.
Okay, there were some jokes in the first one that I thought were a little bit dated, but overall I still enjoyed it much the same way that I enjoyed it the first time. Maybe not quite as much, but it's still, for me, a movie that I would go back to and watch again at
Did
some
that third
point in
act
the
thing not
future.
drive you crazy? Oh, we read the script, so we're okay. Like,
a little bit, yeah, certainly.
Like we're trapped at the top of a.
And we talked about this when we watched it yesterday. Yeah. You know, they get on what locally we would call the detonator.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't. Right, Worlds of Fun.
That Worlds of Fun in KC, and they get up there, and I'm like, but those things go up, and they come back down.
Right.
Like, so why would you do that?
And then they shoot the box
because the script tells you to.
So that they stay at the top. So the zombies can't get to them.
But they're also never going to get out of that thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
They don't know that help is on the way.
That's fine in a pinch because you've at least, like, staved off the inevitable, but they don't seem concerned at all. That's my issue with it. This movie has exactly the same third act kind of problem, where it's a Deus Ex Machina, and it's like, oh no, we're in this, like, tight spot, what are we going to do? And then somebody just shows up, like...
Well, that was unexpected for me as well, but like, when going back to the beginning of this movie, I was hoping, when I first heard about this movie, I was hoping that at least for me, that they would have a compelling storyline to tell, and I don't know that it was very compelling. There are more compelling stories out there, like say Forrest Gump is a compelling storyline. But this movie, at least they had something that I felt wasn't just total garbage. And I've seen.
I just think it's paid by number.
I've seen some before. Now, granted, they used a bunch of formulas, sure, but for me, it kind of worked, and I enjoyed the parallels and kind of a little bit of the character development, if you can call it that. I mean, we've seen these characters before; they're very much the same. It's set in their ways, type of thing. But they all come back to what's he want? What's Columbus want? He wants family. He finally, I think, gets what he wants. I thought he got that at the end of the first one, but then maybe this reseats that reality for him.
Sure.
So my favorite thing about the movie, we're gonna say, let's see. Think about that for a second. I liked so much of this movie. Okay, the first major reveal was kind of shocking because I did not see that. Maybe you saw that coming, but I did not see that coming.
I don't right away even know what we're talking about.
After one of the characters starts turning.
Oh.
And I appreciated that. It was a little bit weird. The love triangle thing was actually certainly very weird.
I thought that whole thing was way too easy. It felt sitcom-y.
I didn't care for the love triangle thing. There were a few
the reveal you're talking about, way too sitcom-y, man.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, the nature of the relationship, I thought they were going to go a different direction than they ultimately did. And like you said, in that particular storyline, if you will, there were some jokes that I laughed at, but overall I didn't like that love triangle.
Did you not think that the conflict, though, like between Columbus and what's-her-face, I just can't think of her name right now. Did you Gwen Stacy from the Spider-Man movies? Did you not think that
Emma Stone's
yeah,
character?
Yeah. Did you not think that conflict was like really contrived though? Like they've been together for 10 years, and minor spoiler, this is the setup for the movie. He pops the question and she can't handle that in Zombieland.
Yeah, I mean,
where marriage wouldn't mean anything.
It wouldn't mean anything, and it's a symbolic gesture. She knows how much it means to him, but does it work? I'm not sure that it worked.
Well, I don't think it works at all. It's just a reason to contrive drama.
But that's the major premise for the whole traveling in this movie.
But the point I'm trying to make is it lost me in the first 5 minutes.
That's unfortunate.
So you needed two things to make that work. The first thing is we needed more background for her for why marriage is such a bad thing.
Okay, that would have been good.
We didn't talk a whole lot about that. I don't know where exactly that comes from. She just vaguely says, like, everybody that gets married gets divorced. And I'm like,
well,
okay,
the first movie establishes she has trust issues.
Yeah, okay, but it's not
10 years later.
But it's also ambiguous. We don't know where those come. We don't know a lot about her family. We don't know about her parents. We don't know how personal is this for her. What exactly is that? Again, we're not just looking at a farce. We're looking at a thing that wants you to think it's a good story. And I think that wants you to think that these are more complex characters than they are. I think it's trying to dupe you into thinking that these are real people. And I meant to say this earlier, but more than even the first movie, and this is part of the reason that I think this movie is not as good as that movie, it's very often making characters act out of character and not like real people in order to make gags work, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But with the whole marriage thing, like, so there's the fact that like it's Zombieland and just like how is divorcing any different than breaking up in this world? It's weird that we don't talk about that.
No, he does make a lawyer joke though. Where are you gonna find a lawyer in Zombieland?
No, exactly. It just makes her look kind of pathetic. I don't know. I don't understand that whole. I want to know where it comes from.
Was her character's name was Wichita, right?
Wichita. That's right.
And
I just couldn't think of it.
Well, it's funny because that's in the state we live in.
Sure, I just forgot.
No, probably the worst thing about this movie, I didn't like a couple of the jokes in where they end up at the top of the building. And I don't want to give too much away if I can say that they ended up...
You're talking about the climax?
In the climax of the movie. But there seemed to be adequate kind of adequate sacrifice in this movie, but that threw me for a curve too when it didn't end up actually being what you kind of thought it was going to be.
I never thought it was going to be that. Like, they didn't get me with that at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what they were going to do with it. But I didn't know that is how it was going to be.
It just felt like plugging in for formula. You know, like it was just really easy for me to tell where this was all going, and I don't know.
Well, like I said, I don't see as much as you do.
Again,
so
I don't feel like
I don't pay attention to that.
I don't feel like they're
much.
telling a story as much as trying to make you think they're telling a story. And I think these guys want you to think that it's a real story about real people as much as they did Deadpool, and they nailed that a lot more than they did these. So
I would say yes. I think that they nailed Deadpool more than this movie, but I'm probably relying a lot on how I felt about the first movie, which is something that I do personally.
Okay, so it's a movie that is like letting the comedy really drive it, and like you're liking the comedy more than me, so that's working more for you.
Yeah,
but like
it's true.
I don't know.
And kudos to shoehorning Bill Murray back in there for a second.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been in the trailers. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Because of where they put it in the film.
It should have been. If it should have just been a big reveal, that would have made it even better. Certainly. But by the end of the movie,
what they do with that, because it would be nice if people could be surprised by it anyway, and it was fine. Again, it just felt like it needed to be there because that was the big thing people remembered from that movie. I'm gonna go this far. I think if Bill Murray's not in that first movie, a lot fewer people even remember it. I think that was the big takeaway from people is, I didn't expect Bill Murray, that was cool, and then like isn't it neat that they murdered him on screen, and like...
How do you feel about the fact that one of the characters they encounter has the word Murraying in reference to that very thing when there should be no other witnesses? Who were they telling?
They didn't tell anybody?
They didn't tell anybody about this.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that for me where it's like, just the logic of the world. And it's frustrating because it feels like they're wanting to kind of create their own zombie mythos, or at least like whet your palate for that a little bit. It's like, if actual zombie fans happen to be watching, we want to set it apart in some way, but we're not actually going to explore any of that stuff. So in this, we've got like brand new kinds of zombies, which was kind of a fun idea.
Yes.
We don't do enough with that.
We didn't do enough with that.
We really don't.
But we did have kind of exciting zombies, if you will, because I remember when I first saw a fast-moving zombie, scared the crud out of me. Like,
was it 28 Days Later, or was it something else?
It might have been 28 days. Yeah, 28 days. Yeah, and I saw that very late. I saw that within the last 10 years.
Oh, really? Yeah. I saw that in the theater when it came out.
Yeah.
So I was like a junior in high school. It just freaked the crap out of me.
One of the things that I didn't... Okay, I will say this. One of the things that I don't understand...
Watch that sometime. It's great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That I don't understand about this world, if you will, is... In the beginning of the first movie...
And there's more word-of-mouth stuff like that. Where you're like, how does anybody know?
Yeah, how does anybody know that? But in the very first movie, Columbus makes a point of telling anybody that he may be the very last human in the world. And then he immediately finds more people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because it was shortly after the outbreak. He doesn't know what's going on. But then he finds more people. But you're still led to believe that this is somewhat rare. But then they keep talking about other people's zombie kills. So they must encounter people along the way. But you don't see that except in story.
You're right. And it's the same problem. In the first movie has the same issue where it's like...
That's what I'm talking about, is the first movie.
I know, but like, what I was going to say is... So this does it like even more times where it's like...
Yes.
Here's this person that had this great zombie kill, and I'm like, how did you know that?
They must encounter these people along the way, but it's not explicitly stated to us, and I felt that was kind of a problem. I would have appreciated if they would have shown us at least some of the characters they meet in passing.
But that's part of the problem with the fourth wall break. Because this is a character who, when he's in voiceover, seems omnipotent.
A little bit.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, he knew about the guy in Pisa.
Like,
that was too much for me.
Did he actually meet these people and talk to them? I don't think he did.
I appreciated the joke.
If he did, but hold on, if he did, why would you believe them?
Number one, yes. Number two...
Of course people are going around saying, I have these great zombie kills. Like, why would you believe them?
I also considered the fact that because of a line in the first one, that they're making up stories to go along with their own stories. To say, does it compare to, say, something like this? In the first movie, he brings up, zombie kill of the week, And then they're like, no, that goes to such and such, but we never saw that person. We don't know if they actually existed. And they do have a line in the first movie where Tallahassee just keeps wanting to one-up, and then Ohio keeps wanting to one-up their stories.
Yeah.
So maybe they're making things up to go on with their stories, but it's not explicitly stated to us, so I think it could go either way.
But also, when we see it happen on screen, you assume it actually happened.
Yes, to a point.
When you're like, the zombie kill of the year, you're like, that person probably actually did that, but like, how did he know it?
Did. How did he know it? This was the biggest word-of-mouth thing that I'd heard.
Because he's omnipotent when he's got a voiceover. He knows he's in a movie.
Yeah, and it was the pizza thing. That was... I appreciated the joke, but it took me completely out of the movie.
All you gotta do is have a different unreliable... Or not unreliable. All you gotta do is have a different omniscient narrator, you know? Mm-hmm. You just get like a real stuffy British guy to voice over and be like, here in Zombieland, you know, you that whole thing, and then you're fine, you know? Because the thing is, it's wanting to crib from stuff like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when it does stuff like that. Where like, it's gonna run off on a tangent. It's like, you think that zombie you're kill of the year? Well, actually, zombie kill of the year was this person who did this thing with a combine.
Yeah,
like,
that would have been even better.
That's how you do with that. You don't have the main character suddenly be God. And that's what they're doing, and it's irritating, because there's no reason for it. Because it's a world with an internal logic.
So, my least favorite, I was thinking about it, my least favorite thing about this movie isn't even regards to the storyline or the characters or anything. It's how badly they represented what the White House would look like in Zombieland.
Oh, that's your biggest thing?
Well, in the first one, they did such a good job of making everything look perfectly real and believable.
There was some unfortunate green screening in this. There was some unfortunate CG, just for locations. The worst CG in this is like crappy TV matte painting stuff.
Yes, and that's what got me. So
the White House wasn't even the worst of it. There's one later that's way worse.
Yes, what was the one later? Because I was thinking about it for a second. I was like, there was one more that wasn't great, and it was...
it when they're in Graceland?
No,
because... I don't remember. Anyway, there's one somewhere that's just really bad.
It was the pizza joke.
Was it? Oh,
yes,
yeah, that is awful.
When they do the pizza joke.
And also, it's not funny.
I just got done saying it worked for me, but I didn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I forgot that's what you were talking about. I don't think that's funny at all.
I didn't like the fact that it pulled me out of the movie. I appreciated the joke, but I didn't like it in this movie.
I didn't think it was funny.
So, anyway, I'm feeling it. I do recommend this movie. The big screen is fun for this kind of treatment, I feel like. And if you like the first one, like you said earlier, if you like the first one, you probably might like this one. I dug it.
There's nothing about the big screen that makes this necessary to go to.
Not necessary to go to, but fun, I say.
But you'll have the same kind of fun. Like, it's a very wait for video kind of movie, I think. Here's a question for you. This is another kind of like, throw logic away, I'm gonna call this, like, status quo syndrome, where it's like, we got so used to these characters all being called by where they're from, that even though they've all lived together for 10 years, they're still doing that. I don't buy that. That's preposterous, especially after
she told him her name
exactly in the first movie, and then like she doesn't know his, or they just don't call each other that. But beyond that, all four of them, like, because the whole point of that is
everybody in the movie seems to be calling themselves by the destination they were going. There's
that too, and I'll get to that in a second because I also wanted to mention that. But I'll just mention that now. It's like, that seemed like an idea he came up with, but then everybody does it. That's another word of mouth thing where it's like, how did that travel like that? I don't even know.
Collective consciousness.
It's funny that, again, minor spoilers. It's funny that we have, and I thought this was a legitimately amusing joke. There's one Walking Dead reference, and he's reading an issue Walking Dead, and he's like, and I'm gonna go back and look at the timeline of real life, because I wonder if that was the last issue published before the year that takes place in, because it's 27, and I can't remember what year that series starts. I think it's like 07 or 08, maybe it's a little bit earlier. But that series is published monthly. It was 12 a year. So that gets you pretty close. That might have been the last issue before, because that's kind of fun if that's what they did.
They're a little bit. They do have an attention to detail like that, so I feel like that could absolutely be
might have
the
been
right
what they
comic.
did. But there's a gag there where he's like, well, this is entirely unrealistic. And what's really funny is, like, Walking Dead compared to this obviously is like way more realistic, and one of the things, and like that's a funny joke. One of the things that Walking Dead does really well is everybody calls the zombies different things. Like when you come upon a different group of people, they've all got all their own terminology.
Sure.
And in this, everybody's using the same terminology.
No, we touched on it barely.
There's like one
barely,
or two things, but a lot of it is the same, and it's weird.
Well, except for the simple fact that the original zombies came out, and there were enough people still left when that happened for them to have identified at least a couple of types of zombies, right?
Yeah.
Before everybody died.
Sure.
And then, but I don't know that everybody was calling, the dumb zombies that.
Yeah.
I remember they were calling them that, and maybe they were spreading that terminology around.
But there's too much stuff that's just the same.
There's too much of that, yes.
But getting back real quick, just to the name thing. So like the whole point of that is don't get too close to anybody.
And then they're all really close to everybody.
But then the whole point of the end of last movie was we trust each other now. So like they would be. It doesn't matter that in the first 5 minutes they're going to break up and they're going to bring that up again and be like, see, we're not supposed to trust each other. But you stayed together for 10 years and you never told each other your names? Or maybe they know them, but they just keep calling each other that.
That might be, because that's how they know each other.
But the reason the film is doing it is because that's how we know them.
Right.
It doesn't ring true. And
that's
so
true.
Stuff like that bothers me.
It would have been nicer if they'd given us a scene, like they gave us a tiny bit of a flashback.
A backflash?
Backflash, I don't know what I'm saying.
If you move forward, is it a forward flash? Is it instead of a flash forward?
Yes.
I'm going to start using
a flashback.
A backflash.
If they'd given us another flashback,
it's like Backdraft,
in which they had given each other names, because at the end of the last movie, she gives him her name, but he's kind of being this stone cold badass at the end of the last movie, where he doesn't return that particular favor.
That's your read on it. My read on it is they do that for no reason but to be kind of cute. I don't think there's any character reason whatsoever that he doesn't give her his name in that moment.
I feel like
at all.
I just feel like that's because he's trying to look the badass when he finally snags a girl.
I don't see that at all.
Really?
That's
cool.
I think you're giving the movie too much credit.
All right.
I think in the moment they don't have any reason for doing that, and they're just like, it's fun for him to withhold that for some reason. Like, it's not. There are places where it feels kind of character driven, and there are other places where it doesn't. I will say, it's kind of consistent. Like, this movie has a lot of the same problems the first one does, but it's also more cookie cutter.
I feel like it's still for me, it's still on par with the first one.
I appreciate that there's more going on, but it also meanders a lot. Like, that first movie's not long enough. It doesn't get enough done. This one does more stuff. It's kind of fun that we go to more locales and stuff, and the third act is more satisfying as an action piece than that first movie, because you're waiting for because the first movie, maybe this is just me, but like based on again the trailers and the title, I'm waiting for them to get to the freaking theme park, and then when they go there, they don't have enough fun in the theme park.
Right.
Here we do a lot more stuff. We had more fun in a much smaller area.
Do we not have the same climactic event where it attracts all the zombies because of the light show?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's giving anything away, because...
No, it's not. And if you're going to do that, how about some kind of a callback where it's like, oh God, no, we've
been here before, like,
turn it off!
Like, and it was just a bigger scene of Tallahassee being in the photo hut, killing zombies.
Yeah.
It looked bleak for a minute.
Yeah.
What was the other thing I was going to say just a moment ago? It had to do with, now I can't remember, but it was another criticism of the movie. But like I said, I still enjoyed this movie.
Rosario Dawson's fun, as always.
Yeah.
She's fine. I think her chemistry with Tallahassee works great. I think that whole thing is fun. But I don't know. Like, I didn't hate it. I
remember.
Again, individual jokes that I laughed at.
Yeah.
But like, I'm gonna forget most of them by tomorrow.
Speaking of storyline, they dwelled too long on the theme of home, finding a home, And I think they stayed about twice as long as at the White House than they needed to for this movie. I felt like it dragged just a little bit in those moments. And of course, we saw that in the trailer that they made it to the White House.
I don't know that I agree with that, because that's... If they made it clearer that it was more fortified, maybe that would help, because that's, like... They're happy there.
Safe.
They're kind of and like it's a lot of space. It's a fun place to live. I don't think they spend too much time there. There is the question of how would somebody leaves and then comes back, and like, how would you be sure that they're still there?
Yeah.
There's that. They're way too flippant about, like, we're never gonna see each other again. It's like, again, it's like, we read the script, we're not really that concerned about that. We know we're going to meet up again somewhere. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of that kind of thing. The bigger question I had with the White House was, how come nobody else ever decided to go
How about
there?
with as many people as there are now as to be identified in Zombieland, how did nobody else go there? And I thought that during the trailer, when I saw the trailer the first time, and you mentioned it in the theater tonight, and I was like, yes, I'm with you. But I just thought of something.
Yeah,
the worst line delivery in the movie is where Columbus addresses the elephant that everybody wondered about the first one, is how in the world is there still electricity? And the worst delivered line in the movie was him completely pointing that out specifically for the audience.
Not to split hairs, but the problem is not line delivery. The problem is script writing. That's a bad line.
Okay, it's a bad line.
It wasn't delivery of the line.
I think he delivered it poorly too.
There's no way to deliver that line. It's a one-off explanation. It happens almost immediately after I turn to Brandon, and I'm like, how come in 10 years the lights haven't gone out?
And this was my criticism of the first movie.
Easy throwaway, explanation.
And he gave it, and he just put it out there. It's directly to the audience without being directly.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's supposed to be a joke, and it doesn't. And it
doesn't play right.
Because again, it's not a farce. Like, if you're gonna do a thing with like very little internal logic, and it's more like something like, I don't know, Balls of Fury, right? Where
I haven't seen that yet.
Where like
they're making a second one.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Where it's.
I need to see the first one.
No one saw that movie. It was not successful. Why are they making that? Is it direct to video? Is it going to Disney Plus?
I have no idea.
But anyway, so really
tangential, but yes.
That's wild. Yeah, we should close up. But anyway, what the heck were we talking about?
I've still enjoyed this review, by the way.
Yeah, me too. What were we talking about?
I don't remember. Internal logic.
Yeah, if it was just
failings.
If it was
movie's
just
bad. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great.
But I enjoyed it.
If it was just like this really like absurd, over the top, like clearly things happen that can't happen in real life, you can get away with stuff like that. Where it's like, we're doing a parody of zombie movies. How come there's electricity? Well, there's water in the dam, so of course they're like it's not that kind of movie.
I accepted it because they didn't explain it the first time.
And I'm not saying it isn't absurd, but it's not that absurd. There's levels of that. It's just it's a little bit inconsistent about what kind of comedy it wants to be, and too often it does that kind of thing not for the sake of doing like crazy absurd humor, but even if it's what it'll do is it'll try to play that way so it can get away with it, but it's narratively cheating is what it's doing. And if you want to make a movie that's all about narrative cheating, that's fine. That's what Airplane is. Make that movie. But that's not stuff's moving. That's not what the first movie was, and it also sometimes did that kind of cheating, so you can't suddenly make that now.
Right.
So you're stuck with that. So you'd hope that we'd cheat less, but we kind of cheated more, is my whole thing. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I didn't appreciate the explanation on the electricity thing.
Yeah.
It was just bad writing. You're right.
Anyway. Well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments if you saw Zombieland Double Tap, and we will see you again down the road. Probably not here in our old brick wall set.
Definitely not for a movie review.
Yeah, but we'll see you again with more How We Felt Abouts in the not too distant future, either here in my current place or at the new one. We're moving in just a couple weeks. It's really super exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to show you guys the new place.
I can't wait to see it.
Get it all set up
in person.
Yeah, I haven't showed you pictures yet.
I know, I'm waiting.
right now. We're not gonna do it right now. I did it on the Captain Logan show last week. Some of the viewers have seen it.
They've seen it before me? Are you kidding?
I just keep forgetting to
Wow,
send it to
the
them.
reveals tonight are really getting to me.
You should have seen that coming. It was really obvious. I was just painting my number. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
Later, folks.